So look at the screen you're listening to this on right now. It's probably black, it's glossy, and well, unless you have the brightness turned all the way up, it's reflecting your face.
Yeah, that is a pretty unsettling way to start.
Right. But we just implicitly trust these screens. We trust our bathroom mirrors, the rear view mirror in the car, the glass storefronts we walk past every single day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We assume they're passive.
Exactly. I mean, the laws of physics dictate that light bounces off the silver backing or the dark glass, and it simply gives you an echo of what is already there. It's a boundary we understand. But what if that boundary is a lie?
Right.
What if they aren't just reflecting you? What if they're actually watching you?
I mean, it is a fundamentally destabilizing thought, and it's the exact paranoia that really drives the narrative we are examining today.
It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in a truly terrifying, just architecturally brilliant horror narrative titled Bloody Mary Started Appearing Outside Mirrors.
Yeah, and it's a heavy one.
It is. And I want to be clear right from the jump, we are not just going to recount a spooky ghost story here. Our mission today is to tear this narrative down to its studs.
Right, because there's so much more going on under the surface.
Exactly. We are going to examine the mechanics of its universe, the psychological horrors of, like, fragmented consciousness, and how this text masterfully weaponizes the technological reality of modern surveillance.
Well, what stands out immediately in this text is its structural ambition. It takes a trope, the localized urban legend of Bloody Mary, and uses it as a Trojan horse.
Oh, totally.
It lures you in with a cliche only to pull the rug out and plunge you into this transdimensional cosmic horror scenario. I mean, it is a profound exploration of human hubris in the digital age.
Okay, let's unpack this setup because the staging here is just crucial. We have four friends, the narrator, Ethan, Sarah, and Lily. It's a stormy night, the power is flickering, the rain is lashing against the windows.
A very classic vibe.
Yeah, it feels exactly like the opening scene of a slasher film from the 1990s.
Which is, entirely intentional on the author's part. It's a classic misdirection. The setting lulls the characters, and by extension, you as the listener, into a false sense of security.
Right, you think you know what's coming.
Exactly. You feel like you know the rules of the game being played, you expect a jump scare, maybe a spooky shadow. You do not expect a fundamental breakdown of spatial reality.
And the catalyst for this breakdown comes when Sarah finds a mirror hidden in her grandmother's attic. And, I mean, the description alone should be a massive red flag.
Oh, without a doubt.
It's a tall mirror, framed in this heavy black wood. The glass is covered in deep scratches, and carved into the wooden back are three very unambiguous words: she follows home.
Which is, a literal warning label.
A giant, glowing neon warning sign.
Mm.
Any rational human being reads that and says, absolutely not, we are leaving this in the attic. But what do?
They do the exact opposite.
Right. They laugh. They bring this incredibly ominous artifact downstairs at exactly midnight. They set it up in the bathroom, light a circle of candles, and pull out their smartphones to record a video for social media.
Yeah.
And then they begin chanting Bloody Mary, like they literally turn an occult warning into content.
We really have to unpack the irony of that specific choice because it's brilliant. They are using social media, which is a platform engineered from the ground up to make people watch them, to inadvertently summon something else entirely.
Right.
They're calling out to an entity whose entire biological or cosmic imperative is to watch them back. They want eyes on them, and they get exactly what they ask for just from the wrong dimension.
The arrogance of that is just staggering to me. It's like, I don't know, finding an unpinned grenade in a trench and deciding it's the perfect prop for a TikTok dance.
That's a great way to put it.
There is zero reverence for the unknown anymore. We treat the past, the occult, folklore, we treat it all as raw material for our own digital narcissism.
It speaks to a much deeper modern condition, I think. We feel so insulated by our technology that we believe we are immune to older primal forces.
Like the screen will protect us.
Exactly. If we can film it, we control it. That's the unspoken assumption there. But in the context of this universe, the ritual isn't a game. Saying the name 3 times in the dark, under specific lighting conditions, it operates more like a password.
Wait, let me push back on that analogy for a second, because a password implies a system that was intelligently designed to be accessed by a user. Are you suggesting this ancient entity built a technological interface for us, or is this more like a a biological trigger.
Oh, that's a brilliant distinction. It's definitely the latter. Think of it less like a computer password and more like an acoustic resonance or a specific frequency.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you strike a tuning fork and the glass shatters. By repeating the specific phonetic sequence of the name, combined with the focused human intent and the specific photon emissions of the candlelight, they are hitting the exact frequency required to thin the membrane between realities.
So it's basically a localized physics hack.
Precisely. We assume the mirror is a solid, impenetrable wall. But a frequency doesn't bounce off a wall if it matches the resonant frequency of the material.
It just passes right through.
Exactly. They are executing a command prompt that opens a door.
And they enter that command prompt while giggling. I mean, they say it once, nothing. They say it twice. And the text notes that the bathroom gets freezing cold and the candles start flickering violently.
That they don't stop.
No. They're still filming, they were still laughing, and they say it the third time.
And the environment immediately reacts.
Instantly. The laughter stops dead. Every single candle is snuffed out at the exact same moment. Complete pitch black darkness swallows the room. And then, in the silence, they hear it.
Yeah.
Slow. Wet.
Yeah.
Breathing. Right behind them in the dark. The atmosphere snaps from this ironic, detached digital joke to visceral, suffocating physical dread.
I want to break down why that temperature drop and the extinguishing of the candles happen, actually. Because in theoretical physics and, paranormal literature, a sudden drop in ambient temperature is often associated with a massive energy draw.
Right, because energy can't be created or destroyed.
Exactly. To bridge two dimensions, to force a pathway through a previously closed membrane requires a colossal amount of energy. The entity is literally siphoning the thermal and kinetic energy out of the room, snuffing the flames, freezing the air just to power its manifestation.
Wow. And then the focal point reacts.
Yeah.
The mirror cracks loudly in the dark. A long, jagged black fracture spreads across the glass, but it doesn't shatter and fall.
No.
Instead, inside that crack, a woman's eye slowly opens within the reflection.
Yeah.
She is just looking out at them. Sarah screams, hits the light switch, and the bathroom is instantly flooded with harsh light.
And everything seems normal for a second.
Right. The mirror is just a cracked mirror. The breathing is gone, but Ethan is gone too.
The speed of the abduction is really crucial to the horror here.
Oh, absolutely, because there's no struggle. There's no blood. The human eye doesn't even register what happened.
Because the human brain just isn't equipped to process a transdimensional shift. If Ethan was pulled into a spatial dimension that folds at a right angle to our 3D reality, our optic nerves literally wouldn't be able to capture the movement.
That is wild.
Yeah, to the human observers in the room, it just registers as a sudden, impossible absence. Ethan didn't leave the room. His coordinates in reality were simply rewritten.
But the phone, Ethan's smartphone, is still lying on the bathroom tiles, and it never stopped recording. And the police show up. They spend the entire night tearing the house apart.
And they find absolutely nothing.
Nothing. No signs of forced entry, no trapdoors, no blood. It is only the next morning when they finally review the video file that the truth is revealed. And this is where the story shifts from creepy to genuinely distressing.
Because the digital lens acts as the ultimate impartial witness.
Exactly. For exactly 1 second, in the chaotic blur of the camera tumbling to the floor, the video catches a glimpse of the mirror, and Ethan is standing inside the reflection.
Yeah.
He is physically inside the glass. He is pressing his hands desperately against the barrier, screaming at the top of his lungs, but there is absolutely no sound.
It's horrific.
And walking up slowly behind him in the reflection is a woman with wet black hair, skin as pale as chalk, and dark, rotting stains around her mouth.
I want to focus on why the camera caught this when human eyes couldn't. Human vision is subjective, it's processed by an amygdala that will actively filter out traumatic, impossible visual data just to protect the host's sanity.
Like a biological firewall.
Yes. But a CMOS sensor in a smartphone camera doesn't have a fight or flight response. It has no biological imperative to protect its own sanity. It just records the photons hitting the lens. The camera captured the permeable membrane objectively.
Let's sit with the psychological toll of what Ethan is experiencing in that footage, because I actually had to put the text down and walk away when I first read this part.
It's a lot to take in.
Imagine that sheer, absolute helplessness. You haven't been taken to a dungeon miles away. You are physically right there, literally inches from your friends. You can see them.
Right.
You are screaming until your throat bleeds, pounding on the barrier, but they look right through you.
It is the ultimate sensory deprivation
It
chamber.
genuinely breaks my brain to think about.
Yeah.
You are suddenly stripped of your voice, your autonomy, your physical dimension.
Mhm.
You are reduced to a silent photograph in a frame, just watching your own life continue without you.
It's an eternity of localized isolation. You are a ghost while you are still completely biologically alive. And the entity that took him, this woman with the white skin and the dark stains for description, is deeply unsettling because it falls right into the uncanny valley.
Yeah, it's just wrong.
Exactly. It perverts the familiar human form, it wears a human shape, but it operates on completely alien physics.
And once that barrier is breached, the entity doesn't just retreat back into the attic mirror like a satisfied predator. It escalates. It stakes a claim on their reality.
Things speed up significantly here.
Because the very next morning, Sarah disappears. But unlike Ethan's clean, silent vanishing, Sarah's abduction is violent. There is blood smeared inside the sink. And written across the bathroom mirror in thick, wet blood are two words, "one left."
The paradigm has shifted entirely. The entity is no longer just hunting opportunistically, it is taunting them.
Yeah, it's personal now.
It is demonstrating a terrifying level of sapience and malice. It understands language, it understands fear, and it is actively playing with its food.
Which brings up a massive question about the illusion of containment. Because Lily, who is understandably pushed entirely past the brink of rational thought at this point, grabs a claw hammer. She and the narrator drag this cursed antique mirror out into the backyard. They are determined to destroy it. But the moment their hands touch the frame, the surface of the glass changes. The reflection of the backyard drops away, and they see Ethan and Sarah trapped together inside the glass. They're pounding silently, their faces contorted in pure terror, trying to warn Lily.
It's a final warning from the other side.
And then the ghost manifests between the two trapped friends. The skin around her mouth is split completely open, her eyes are stark white, and carved directly into the flesh of her forehead are the words, "Look at me."
Such a chilling image.
Lily just panics. She swings the hammer with everything she has and smashes the mirror. The glass explodes into hundreds of shards.
And this action right here is the critical juncture of the entire narrative. This is where the architecture of the dread expands exponentially.
Okay, I have to stop here because Lily's logic, driven by pure panic, is just so flawed. Destroying the mirror to stop the entity that's like taking a sledgehammer to your television monitor because you don't like the news broadcast.
Right.
Why would she think breaking the physical glass would kill the thing, broadcasting the signal?
I love that you brought up the television analogy, but let's take it a step further into, like, network topology. Lily operates under the assumption that the mirror is a standalone hard drive.
Okay.
She thinks the entity lives inside that specific piece of wood and silver backing. But the reality of this universe is that the mirror is just a network terminal. It's a router.
Oh, man.
By taking a hammer to the writer, she didn't shut down the internet. She didn't destroy the data. What she did was fundamentally worse. The intact mirror acted as a bottleneck. It was a single, localized access point.
Oh, no.
By shattering it violently, she scattered the connection protocol. She didn't close the door. She blew the hinges off the entire concept of containment.
And the text immediately validates that, because the pacing of the story violently shifts right here. It goes from this slow, creeping dread into a rapid staccato panic.
It's relentless.
The moment that hammer strikes the antique glass in the yard, the fallout is instantaneous. Inside the house, the bathroom mirrors crack.
The television screens fracture.
The windows spiderweb.
The smartphones on the table split down the middle.
Every single reflective surface in their environment cracks simultaneously. It's this rhythmic, overlapping, snapping sound. And inside every single reflection, no matter how small, the entity is standing there, looking out at them.
Taking a step back from the story for a second, this is where the author brilliantly weaponizes our own modern reality against us. We've arranged our lives into a decentralized panopticon.
Right. I mean, Foucault's concept of the panopticon relies on a central guard tower where the inmates might be watched at any given moment, forcing them to always behave as if they are. But this is worse.
Infinitely worse. In Foucault's model, the prison is built around the inmates. In our reality, we built the prison ourselves. We voluntarily purchased the guard towers and placed them in our bedrooms, our kitchens, our pockets. We strapped them to our wrists. Every black glass screen is a node in a global surveillance network. The entity didn't need to work hard to surround them. It just hacked into the hardware we so conveniently provided.
I want you, the listener, to do a quick mental tally right now. Just freeze and look around whatever room or vehicle you are in. Count the reflective surfaces.
There are so many.
Your phone screen,
Yeah.
laptop monitor, the glass on the microwave door, the rearview mirror, the glossy finish on your coffee mug, the lens of a webcam. Imagine if every single one of those objects is not a passive tool, but an active, permeable membrane, a two-way mirror.
It completely destroys the geometry of safety. A room with windows and screens is no longer a shelter. It's an enclosure. It's a fishbowl surrounded by hungry observers.
And this rhythmic panic of shattering glass gives way to the most dreadful, silent realization of the entire narrative. Because Lily points a shaking finger down the hallway. The entity is no longer just on the other side of the glass. Wet footprints are slowly manifesting on the hardwood floor. Step by step. Coming closer.
It's terrifying.
The hallway lights shut off instantly with a sharp clack. And from the pitch-black darkness, a woman's voice whispers out loud in the physical air of the house, "You open the door."
The breach is complete. The entity has inverted the spatial relationship.
The physical mirrors in the house begin bleeding a thick, black, viscous liquid. The narrator, paralyzed by terror, happens to catch their own reflection in a surviving shard of glass on the wall. And the narrator sees their own reflection smiling at them. But the narrator's face is frozen in horror. They are not smiling.
Yeah.
And then Bloody Mary steps out of the shadows. She is standing in the physical doorway of the bathroom. The ghost has left the glass.
I want to analyze that line of dialogue, actually.
Yeah.
You opened the door line because it is a vital piece of the lore. It establishes the concept of consent. The entity is immensely powerful, but it clearly possessed a limitation. It couldn't just walk into our dimension whenever it pleased. The membrane held it back.
So it needed an invite.
Exactly. The ritual, the chanting, the intent, the specific energetic alignment was a necessary invitation. It required human complicity to strip away the natural physical protections of our reality.
I hear what you're saying about consent, but let me challenge that. Is it really consent if you don't know what you're agreeing to?
That's fair.
If you click accept on a terms of service agreement you didn't read, and it turns out you signed away your soul, the system might view it as consent, but it's fundamentally a trap. It's predatory.
That is a very fair pushback, and you're right. It is predatory. It's a cosmic phishing scam.
A phishing scam, exactly.
The legend of Bloody Mary was the bait, and they clicked the malicious link. And notice the environmental degradation that happens when the ghost physically enters the hallway. The lights shorting out, the mirrors bleeding black liquid. The entity's physical mass existing in our 3D space is a paradox. It is actively degrading the fundamental laws of physics around it just by existing here.
But the detail that genuinely chills my blood isn't the ghost in the hallway. It's the narrator's reflection, smiling independently. We talked about the loss of autonomy when Ethan was trapped inside the glass.
Yeah.
But this is an entirely different level of violation.
It is the hijacking of your core identity.
Exactly. Your reflection is the very first way you learn to recognize yourself as an individual when you are an infant. It is the visual anchor of your ego.
Right.
To have that stolen from you, to see your own face manipulated like a meat puppet while you are still wearing it. The horror isn't just that there's a monster in your house. The horror is that your reflection is no longer you. You are entirely alone, and your own image has betrayed you.
It induces a state of absolute psychological collapse. If you cannot trust the direct optical feedback of your own body, you cannot trust reality. And this visual assault is immediately followed by a telepathic one.
Yes, because Lily grabs the narrator and screams, "Don't look at her face!" But it's too late. The narrator already has made eye contact.
And that's all it takes.
And the moment that eye contact connects, the attack breaches the narrator's mind. The narrator suddenly hears whispering, but it's not coming from the hallway. It is happening inside their head.
Right.
It's a cacophony of hundreds of overlapping voices, people crying, begging, screaming warnings. Ethan's voice rises up from the mental static, whispering, "She keeps us in the glass." Sarah's voice breaks through, "Don't let her see your reflection."
The entity is not a singular ghost. It is a conduit. It is a walking hive mind of every single consciousness it has ever consumed. When the narrator makes eye contact, they are connecting to the entire network of the trapped.
And the physical manifestation of the ghost reacts to this connection. The woman's mouth splits unnaturally wide, tearing the skin all the way back to her ears, spilling that thick black liquid.
Which is horrifying.
Behind them, the massive crack in the bathroom mirror suddenly begins to heal itself. The glass smooths over perfectly. But the reflection it shows is wrong. It doesn't show the modern bathroom.
No, it shows something much older.
It shows an older, rotting, cavernous version of the room. The walls inside the reflection are covered in millions of frantic, bloody scratches. And written over and over again on the walls inside the glass is the same terrifying sentence. She isn't the first.
This is the moment the narrative expands its scope from a local haunting into ancient lore.
Inside the healed mirror, the narrator sees dozens of people. Missing people. There are children in modern clothes, adults in vintage suits, and deeper in the background, there are people wearing ancient, unrecognizable rags. They are all trapped together in this infinite, rotting reflection. One woman rushes up to the glass, presses her bloody hands against it, and mouths something silently. And the mirror itself dynamically translates her silent words, forming text across the glass in real time. Don't let her touch you.
Let's dissect the historical implications of what the narrator is seeing here, because the phrase "she isn't the first," combined with the presence of ancient people trapped in the background, completely recontextualizes the threat level.
Right.
This isn't a modern haunting triggered by a cursed antique. This mechanism has been operating for centuries.
Because humanity has been creating reflective surfaces for millennia. Long before smartphones or silver-backed glass, we had polished obsidian mirrors in Mesoamerica. We had polished bronze shields in ancient Greece. We had still pools of dark water.
Exactly. Mirrors are not new technology to this entity. They are simply the latest, most efficient version of the feeding trough. The entity has been harvesting human consciousness through reflection since the very dawn of civilization. It evolves alongside our vanity.
And the consequence of being harvested, it's unimaginable. Which brings us to Lily's fate. We really have to talk about what happens to Lily, because it is one of the most viscerally horrific things I have ever read.
It's definitely the darkest part of the story.
The ghost moves with impossible speed, teleporting instantly right behind Lily. A pale, freezing hand touches Lily's shoulder.
And that physical contact initiates the conversion process.
Lily freezes in place.
Huh.
And then her skin slowly begins to turn reflective. It starts at her shoulder and spreads like a virus beneath her flesh. Her skin hardens into glass. Her eyes roll back and become shiny, convex black mirrors.
Just brutal.
She manages to whisper one last thing.
Hey, she's pulling me inside.
And then her body bends backward at an incredibly violent, unnatural angle, and with one deafening, catastrophic sound, Lily shatters.
Yeah.
Her physical body explodes into thousands of razor-sharp glass fragments that coat the entire bathroom.
It is a devastating, absolute destruction of human biology.
But the horror doesn't stop with the physical destruction. Because the narrator looks down at the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of their friend. And inside every single shard of glass, in every tiny splinter scattered across the bloody tiles, Lily is still alive.
Which is just beyond comprehension.
Her reflection is trapped inside every individual fragment, and she is screaming.
We really need to pause and interrogate the psychological weight of this specific fate. To have your consciousness fragmented into thousands of independent pieces. To have your ego shattered, yet to remain entirely aware, sentient, and experiencing agony in each individual shard simultaneously.
I genuinely struggled with this concept. It makes physical death seem like an absolute mercy. She's literally shattered, but her awareness isn't gone. It's multiplied.
It is an eternity of localized, multiplied agony. You are experiencing infinity through the lens of pure pain. It completely breaks the human brain's capacity for empathy because it is a level of suffering that exists entirely outside of biological physics. And it highlights the terrifying power dynamic of this universe. The entity doesn't just kill its victims, it processes human souls into raw building materials for its own environment.
And with Lily destroyed, and the ancient history of this dimensional trap laid bare, the story pulls back the final curtain. It reveals the true, mind-bending scale of the threat. The narrator looks up from the shattered pieces of Lily and stares at the ghost of Bloody Mary.
The reveal here is incredible.
And beneath the pale, rotting skin of the ghost's face, parts of Lily's silently screaming face begin to press outward.
Assimilation. The ghost is actively wearing the consciousness of the people it consumes.
Exactly. And then, the critical mass is reached. Every single reflective surface in the entire house activates at once. The smartphones, the windows, the polished silverware in the kitchen.
It's all awake.
Even when the narrator squeezes their eyes shut, they can still see the reflections projecting directly into their optic nerve. And the hundreds of voices trapped in the network start screaming in unison inside the narrator's head. She's crossing over!
The structural integrity of the membrane has failed completely.
The bathroom ceiling cracks with a sound like a thunderclap. But drywall doesn't fall.
Mm.
Instead, thick black liquid pours down from the fracture, instantly flooding the room.
Yeah.
And as the liquid rises, human faces emerge from the black waves, gasping, trying to breathe before being pulled back down. And this is where the narrator and the reader arrives at the ultimate devastating realization.
The shift in scale.
The mirror world isn't inside the mirrors. The mirrors were never a container. They were only ever windows.
That's the kicker.
And on the other side of those windows is an endless black glass ocean. And moving slowly beneath the surface of that ocean is an enormous, unimaginably massive entity. It is so gigantic that its passing blots out entire horizons within the reflections. Millions of trapped, silent faces stare outward from the surface of its gigantic body.
This is the narrative's masterful pivot into true Lovecraftian cosmic horror.
Yes. Bloody Mary, the ghost they were so terrified of, the entity that just slaughtered their friends, steps aside slowly. She bows her head, making room. Because she wasn't the final boss.
Not even close.
She was never the main threat. She was just the harbinger. Every reflection in the house suddenly shatters inward, imploding as a gigantic black glass hand emerges from the darkness of the other side, and the trapped voices in the narrator's mind whisper the final, horrific truth. She was only the first thing that saw us.
It is an absolutely flawless progression of dread. What began as four bored teenagers messing around with a smartphone camera has escalated, logically and terrifyingly, into a trans-dimensional apocalypse.
I was trying to find an analogy for what Bloody Mary actually is in this ecosystem, and the best I can come up with is an anglerfish. She's the glowing, mesmerizing lure dangling in the deep, dark ocean.
That is the perfect biological metaphor. The Bloody Mary legend, the spooky ghost in the glass, the thrill of the dare, it's all just an evolutionary decoy. It is designed specifically to draw our attention, to make us look deeply into the glass, to trick us into saying the password.
And the most terrifying implication of this massive, ancient predator moving beneath the black glass ocean is the retroactive realization of our entire history. This thing has been watching humanity through every single reflection we have ever made since the very beginning of time.
Yeah, that is a chilling thought.
Every time we stopped to admire ourselves in a pool of water, every time we checked our hair in a rearview mirror, every time we stared into our dark phone screens, we thought we were looking at ourselves. But we were just standing in front of its windows, offering ourselves up.
We are projecting our vanity into the void, completely unaware of what is looking back. We assume we are the apex observers of our own lives.
We are just cattle walking past the slaughterhouse window, admiring our own reflection in the glass, entirely oblivious to the butcher standing on the other side.
And that, ultimately, is the thesis of the narrative. It synthesizes our technological dependency, our inherent narcissism, and our profound vulnerability. It forces us to question the fundamental safety of our most intimate environments. If Foucault's panopticon was about societal control, this is about cosmic exposure.
So as we wrap up this incredibly dark journey, I want to bring this back to you, the person listening right now. Think about the sheer volume of reflections you interact with daily.
It's more than you realize.
The phone screen when it goes dark, the storefront windows you pass on your commute, the dark television screen sitting in your living room right now.
Yeah.
We take that passive, physical echo completely for granted. We assume that because we cast a reflection, we own it.
We operate under the delusion that we're the only ones looking.
But this text leaves us with one final, deeply invasive thought. Every mirror is watching something. So the next time you are alone in your bathroom and you look into the mirror to hold eye contact with yourself, pay very close attention.
Yeah, be careful.
If you look away, and for just a fraction of a millisecond, your reflection doesn't look away at exactly the same time, remember what is waiting beneath the black glass ocean. Stay curious, stay observant, and maybe dim the lights on your screens.